What's going on, College Hoops Heads? This is another edition slash episode on the Center Hub's YouTube channel for our weekly live stream. My name is Stephen Bagell. I am joined by Andrew Schaeffer. Andrew, this was, I don't want to say a slow week, but especially coming off of Feast Week, a little less glam to it than obviously what Feast Week has. With that said, first of all, how are you doing today?
I'm good. We had, like you said, we had Feast week was great. This week was still pretty solid. We got a lot of good results.
Mm-hmm.
Still another good week. Next couple of weeks are going to be pretty slow, obviously, because of Christmas break and, players got to go home and see family and stuff like that. But, we have plenty to discuss and looking forward to it.
So let's start with the SEC ACC challenge. The SEC won 9 games to 7, which I think is a win for the ACC.
Yes, I would agree.
So, I mean, what are your biggest takeaways? I suppose the big one to talk about would be Tennessee losing at Syracuse. Obviously, I know you could talk about that game a little bit.
Yeah. Look, remember last year the ACC lost 14-2. So that was pretty embarrassing. I think the ACC took some major strides, and I think we all knew that coming into the season. A lot of us felt the ACC was an improved league, and they just had to go out and prove it. And they did that, especially on day one. I think it was 6-3 on day one. Syracuse really needed that win against Tennessee. They did a great job, especially on the defensive end of the floor. Frustrating Nate Ahmed and Jacoby Gillespie. But still a lot of season left for both of those teams. I expect Tennessee to be fine. They're going to be in the tournament. They're not a team that I'm scared about missing the tournament or anything like that. I think the biggest takeaway is that the SEC just isn't what they were last year. I think the SEC is not as good as they were last year. I think the ACC is better than what they were last year. Like the ACC, I think, I talked about this with you and John Simpson on the One and Done podcast that you guys can go find everywhere you get your stuff. We agreed the ACC is about a 6-7 bid league, and the SEC is probably 9-10. And I think the ACC, even though they lost the challenge, I think they have to be pretty happy with the results that they got overall. I mean, they got some pretty good ones. Obviously Syracuse was a big one. I don't think anyone was expecting. They had some of the results are escaping me at the moment, but they did have some good ones. And obviously it was crucial for them.
What about, while we're talking about the SEC, I mean, as we said, Miami was one at Ole Miss. That's could have major bubble implications later in the year. Oklahoma won at Wake Forest. Obviously, that's a notch for the SEC. Oklahoma did end up losing to Arizona State last night in the Jerry Colangelo Classic. Notre Dame beat Missouri and TCU this week. That bodes well for them. Obviously, assuming Marcus Burden is going to be healthy, we know that's something hanging over them. Arkansas beat Louisville. Obviously, that helps the SEC a little bit. But again, that's not detrimental to Louisville or anything like that, obviously.
No.
Okay, and obviously Virginia at Texas is another big one in the ACC's favor. Let's talk about Kentucky while we're on the SEC.
Yeah.
Kentucky had a week, I'm pulling up the results now, where they lost a home game to North Carolina and then lost to Gonzaga by 35 on a neutral. They are now 5-4, and the 4 losses are North Carolina, Gonzaga, Louisville, and Michigan State. Again, 4 respectable losses that wouldn't prevent them from making the tournament or anything like that.
Right.
But when your 5 wins are all basically bye games and your 4 competitive games, you lost all of them. At what point should Kentucky fans be they probably already are concerned. I already saw they're discussing fans are already ready to ship Mark Pope off and buy him out at this point.
Yeah. No, obviously they're a passionate fan base, and rightfully so. But I listen. they have opportunities coming. St. John's is a winnable game for them. St. John's did not look very good against Ole Miss on Saturday. Um, I covered the game for the Center Hub. They didn't look great, especially on the offensive end. I think Kentucky can win that game. It's possible. They also get Indiana. They can win that game. Indiana just lost the other day, so Louisville. So Kentucky still has opportunities. I think the concern for like the NCAA tournament becomes if they don't have a resume type win in their non-conference schedule. Like I think you got to win one of those St. John's Indiana games. I think as long as you get one, I think it's like okay, at least we have something we can hang our hat on in the non-con. Because if you have nothing, like take Missouri for example, I'll use them. I know they're not Kentucky, but Missouri has not beaten anybody. They just lost to Kansas today. Missouri doesn't have a lot of opportunities. They're in trouble, right? Kentucky, there's obviously Kentucky's not what we all thought they were going to be. And obviously, when you're missing three important pieces in Quaintance Lowe and Diabate, obviously that doesn't help. And we don't know when any of those players are coming back. But I do think I'm obviously concerned. Am I concerned they're going to miss the tournament yet? No, I'm not there yet. But if they don't win one of those marquee non-conference games, it's going to be an issue because the SEC is not as strong as it was last year.
So I think the loss to Gonzaga was like one of the biggest losses ever. I remember seeing something like that somewhere.
Yeah, it's either the biggest or it was like definitely top 5 biggest losses in their history for sure. I read the stat also. I don't remember exactly where I found it, but
yeah. Okay. Other than the Big East, sorry, not. We'll talk about the Big East next. But other than the ACC SEC challenge, there again coming off Feast Week, there were some games. Like Saturday was really the main slate of great games. We did have UConn over Kansas.
Yeah. No, UConn. Listen, obviously Darren Peterson didn't play, which impacts a lot. But you and I saw UConn against Illinois. UConn is a Final Four team. They have leadership, they have talent, they have a great coach, they have a great program. I was not surprised that UConn went in there and won that game at all. Caravan was great. And they did it without Taris Reed, who, was hurt. And, I thought UConn looked as legit as they can be, and they're going to be a threat, and they should win the Big East without a problem.
Yeah. What about Duke? Like, did anyone really help themselves more this week than the Blue Devils? They beat the defending champs in Florida, and then they won. Was that game at Michigan State? I believe it was.
Yes. Yeah, it was the East Lansing. Yep.
So like, is there a better? At least not this week. I can't think of anyone. Like, Gonzaga, Iowa State helped themselves tremendously. But having those two big wins for Duke, I was going to say, they may have, like, the strongest resume now. Like, we were talking about Michigan and Arizona having good resumes. Duke is right up, though, now with those teams.
Yeah, I mean, the other team I would throw in there is Virginia. The week they had beating Dayton and Texas, but it's not as bad. It's not Duke. Right, like I agree with you. Duke had a very strong week. I mean, to go into East Lansing and beat Tom Izzo is very hard to do, especially early on in the season. That was a hell of a win. I mean, Cam Boozer was great in the second half. Isaiah Evans was huge. Caleb Foster, I thought, played really well. He had a huge 3 at the end. And that's a kid who needs confidence, right? I mean, we talked about it in the ACC pod a while back. How I thought eventually Caden Boozer was going to be the starting point guard, but Caleb Foster has played well enough to be that starting point guard right now. But yeah, Duke is they're going to win the ACC, and I think they're going to be in the mix for a number 1 seed. They may even be the number 1 overall seed when we get to March. Who knows? But yeah, I think Duke is clearly a threat to win the national title. Do I think they're as talented as last year? No. But I do think when you have a potential number 1 pick on your team in Boozer, and you have Ngangba, who's a first-round pick, Evans could be a first-round pick, Sarr and Hamenia are both very good shooters. Duke is loaded. They have a lot of talent, and there obviously is a lot of revenge on some of the people that were there last year after the way they lost in the Final Four. So Duke absolutely helped themselves for sure. I totally agree.
What about Iowa State? I mean, obviously beating Purdue by what, 25, I think it was. It was the
It was
biggest
a lot.
it was the biggest defeat by a number one team lost by in a home game, I think, in the history of the AP poll. I think I saw.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I got to give John Simpson a lot of credit because he's the one who was on this bandwagon for a while now, and he was right. I mean, that trio is incredible.
Yeah.
Momcilovic he's got a lot in that offensive arsenal. What he's able to do, and Lipsy, he was hurt and he comes in healthy. He didn't miss a beat. I mean, he played great. Jefferson's obviously really talented, and we know that TJ Otzelberger is one of the best coaches in the country. I mean, we've known this for a while. It's just they haven't been to Elite Eight in 25 years, and I think this really could be the year that Iowa State finally gets over that hump. They've got experience, leadership, talent. They're obviously in a very difficult league. The Big 12 is going to be a gauntlet, especially at the top with Houston and Arizona and some of the other teams. But I mean, to go into Mackey Arena and beat Purdue the way they did was impressive. I think I came away more concerned with Purdue actually than I was impressed with Iowa State.
Okay, so what are your concerns about Purdue?
So, well, first of all, Lawyer and Kaufman-Renn did not play well.
Yeah.
At one point, they were 2 for 15 in that game. So I have concerns there. And again, we've seen this in the past where Purdue struggles a little bit with physicality. Like when a team is very physical with their guards, especially Smith, Lawyer, when they're physical, they don't play well. And we saw this with ball pressure. They don't play well. Obviously, look, Purdue didn't play well. Offensively, they didn't play well. They had a bad night. It happens. They were in the game for 20 minutes. I don't know, maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then Iowa State opened it up. But I'm just concerned with the ball pressure defensively. I mean, to give up 81 to Iowa State, I just didn't see that coming. So defensively, I think they're maybe not as good as I thought. I have concerns now where if a team plays them and applies a ton of pressure defensively, how do they handle that? Because they didn't handle it well against Iowa State. That's a team that defensively gets into you, and they're going to play teams like Michigan State, who historically are pressure defensive type teams.
Yeah.
Those grinder out styles. I'm a little bit concerned with Purdue. Are they going to make the tournament? Yes. Can they win the Big Ten? Yes. But I have concerns now moving forward, and that they're going to have to answer.
Okay, I'm seeing what else from this week. Arizona beat Auburn convincingly yesterday. Again, they just added to a phenomenal resume. St. John's beat Ole Miss at MSG. That's a win the Big East needed, especially today where we saw Creighton lose to Nebraska, Georgetown lose to North Carolina. Who did Seton Hall beat yesterday? No, it's Kansas State.
Kansas State.
But otherwise, the Big East outside of UConn and then maybe St. John's just does not seem to have NCAA tournament resumes. Maybe Seton Hall gets there. Maybe Villanova could get there. I covered Villanova yesterday during the Big Five Classic triple header where they won the Big Five championship. But otherwise, it's not going to be Marquette this year. It doesn't seem like it's going to be Creighton this year.
No. Providence
just doesn't have the defense.
Yeah, I agree.
So those teams were projected to be 3, 4, and 5 in the conference this year.
Yeah, and they've all been disappointing for different reasons. I'm still curious about Butler. I mean, I know they lost to Boise yesterday, which is a difficult one to swallow for them.
What about Xavier? They just got to win against Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing better.
Yeah.
I just don't know that they can beat tournament quality teams. I think they can beat, some of the non-tournament teams, but I just don't know if they're ready to beat, St. John's or UConn, or I don't think they're ready yet. I think they're a year or two away. And we knew when Richard Pitino took the job, it was going to take some time, and he needs more NIL too on top of that. Xavier's not a NIL, it's not a big NIL school. So I think the rev share will really go a long way for them when they do settle on whenever that's decided. But I think if Richard Pitino, I think the goal for Xavier this year is just don't finish in the bottom three. If you could
Yeah.
do that, I think that's a great year, honestly, for them. I know, um, DePaul's had their struggles, obviously, um, but like I've been shocked with how good Seton Hall's played. Honestly, I think Shaheen deserves a lot of credit. And I know we talked off air about Shaheen and how Seton Hall's going to have to pony up the money, or he's going to potentially get poached by another program. And honestly, for him, I just hope he gets everything he deserves because he's done a hell of a job at Seton Hall this year.
It's funny because we were at Big East Media Day, and
Yeah,
every single question to Shaheen was, "What's going on? You don't have any NIL money." Like
right,
that was the storyline. That
right.
and Shaka not using the transfer portal, and Richard Pitino joining the conference with his dad were probably the three storylines of the entire Big East
Yeah,
media.
no, 100%. I mean, every coach we went to, they were asked that question. It's crazy.
But with that said, like the fact that Shaheen's doing what he's doing with the lack of resource he has and the talent he has, like that's just unbelievable. It really is.
It's remarkable. I mean, Seton Hall is one of the bottom feeders in NIL, and most people had them picked last in the league, including myself. I mean, I'll be the first to admit it. I preseason picked them last, and they beat NC State at Maui. They just beat Kansas State on the road. Like Seton Hall is no slouch, and Shaheen has his type of guys. Tough, physical, defensive minded. Like that's what he wants.
Yeah.
I think it'd be very different. I mean, again, do I think schools will come after him? Yes. Is it going to be hard to leave his alma mater? Yes. So I think he's going to have to. Yeah, he's going to have to figure it out. But as long as Seton Hall continues to play the way they're playing, they're going to be on the bubble. Sure, they're going to be right there.
So, okay. I have, as you know, I do my weekly top 75
Yeah.
piece, ranking the top 75 teams in the country. And you and I have talked about this already. The top, I would say, 9, I think, are pretty much in a tier of their own. But it is so incredibly difficult to rank them 1 through 9. I think I have an idea for who I want to have at 8 and 9, but the top 7 is incredibly tough.
Yeah.
I asked this because Purdue was the number 1 team going into this week in the AP poll.
Right.
Obviously, we talked about the Iowa State outcome. Who is going to be the number 1 team in the country this week?
In the AP poll, it'll be Arizona.
Okay.
They're just going to move everybody up, I think.
Who should it be?
Michigan. Frankly, the Michigan to me is the best team in America. And the reason I say that is because you look at their non-conference schedule. I don't have it. I know Ken Palm, I think, had it ranked like 5th toughest right now. When you look at who they played. I mean, I know they just blew out Rutgers, and they're a conference game, but I would have Michigan at number 1 myself. I'm so impressed with Dusty May and what he's done, but no disrespect to Arizona. I mean, they've been great too, and to blow out Auburn by 29 points is pretty impressive. But yeah, Arizona's got a good game coming up that we'll discuss a little later. Over the weekend, they're going to play Alabama, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I would go with Michigan. To me, they're the best team at the moment.
Yeah, again, the top 9, if anyone was wondering, Arizona, Michigan, Duke, I think are 1, 2, and 3 in some order. Then you probably have UConn, Gonzaga, Purdue, and Iowa State in the next tier, and then probably Houston and Michigan State in the next. But like again, I think all those teams are very, very interchangeable.
Yeah, I mean, it's very top heavy, right? Which I think is great for the sport. We get a lot of entertaining games, great teams, and the fact that some of these teams have gone out and scheduled as hard as they have, like Arizona and Michigan and Purdue, and Duke's had they've all played tough schedules. It's not like they played cupcakes. So,
yeah.
Which I think is great. And Matt Norlander, I think, mentioned it last night on Twitter how it's becoming more public that coaches are taking notice that they need to schedule harder, and I think that's great for the sport.
So, okay, anything you want to discuss from last week, or do you think we should just start previewing this upcoming week?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is, um, I agree with you. There's 9 teams that are like legitimately in there. I would also put BYU in there, just
Okay.
outside there. I think they've looked really good. Obviously, Louisville has looked very good. I know they beat Indiana, lost to Arkansas, but Louisville is still a very capable team. Um, Kansas is probably more on the outside, even though Kansas has looked pretty good so far. I mean, they've beaten all their Power Five opponents, even though they're not like test worthy other than Tennessee. They beat Notre Dame, Syracuse, and Missouri. But, Kansas has played their role and done their part. And I think Texas Tech got a big win today over LSU, which I know LSU is probably not what we all thought, but Texas Tech kind of needed a big win like that, like a blowout type win after the loss they took to Purdue and some of the struggles they've had early.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the ACC SEC challenge went really well. I think there were some great games. Like you said, and that's all I'd have to say. So I think we can start looking ahead.
Okay. So going off to next week, Monday slate. I think there's only like 5 or 6 games total. Like very, very small slate. I think I'm going to be at Penn and Lafayette tomorrow.
Okay.
Obviously, Ethan Roberts with a potentially devastating injury that he sustained in
Yeah.
the Big 5 Classic. So that game obviously lost some luster when the potential Ivy League Player of the Year may, potentially be out for the season.
Yeah, that's a big blow. I mean, listen, for those of you that don't watch Ivy League basketball, he's really good. Really talented player. Fran McCaffrey was brought in and he's done a great job. And now the pressure's on TJ Power, who played
Yeah.
at Duke and Virginia, and he's looked pretty solid for Penn. And I listen. I mean, you and I have talked about this. I think the media was low on Penn to start the year. I think they were preseason picked like 7th or something in the
They
league, and
were.
they should have probably been 3rd or 4th, frankly. But now you lose Ethan Roberts potentially. Again, I don't know how serious it is from what I've heard and what we've spoken about. It sounds like it's a pretty serious long-term injury, which is unfortunate for him. And hopefully he gets better and hopefully he's able to play this year and get Penn on track. And it sucks for Penn. It sucks for Fran, and it sucks for Ethan Roberts. And hopefully he can get back out there and play some games and get Penn on a winning track.
So yeah, I'm doing that Monday. Tuesday, Villanova is going to Michigan. Boy, does the Big East need that win somehow. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that would be the type of win Villanova needs for people to confidently say, okay, the Big East is going to be a 3-bid league this year.
I would agree. And Kevin Willard and Villanova really haven't been tested all that much to this point.
Yeah.
So this is really the first big one. Obviously, it's a daunting task going to Ann Arbor. But I don't know that. I mean, obviously, they'd love to win the game, right? Because it would be great. If they can keep it competitive and be close with like 2-3 minutes to go and the game is like tight, I'm going to feel pretty confident anyway that Villanova is going to find a way in.
Yeah. There was also the Jimmy V Classic at Madison Square Garden on Tuesday. Clemson and BYU and Florida and UConn. Florida needs that win. I mean,
oh yeah,
against UConn.
Yes, no, they do. The crowd's going to be all over UConn. Obviously, it's going to be basically a road game for the Gators. But I think if you're Todd Golden, your team must have gained some confidence from nearly winning at Cameron against Duke. Xavier Lee started to play better, which I think is really important. And we saw it when Illinois played UConn. Illinois had a lot of open looks. So I think if Florida gets open looks, they can win that game. It's absolutely doable. I know there's a little bit of revenge there because UConn lost to Florida last year in the NCAA tournament. So there's a little bit of some revenge there. I don't know if Taris Reed's going to play. So that's another issue. And I think Clemson has sneakily been very good.
Yeah.
That's a solid team. Brad Brownell's, again, a lot of people thought Clemson was going to be taking a step back, and they are right back where they were last year, which is a solid NCAA tournament team. I don't think they're going to be afraid of BYU. They're not going to be afraid of the Garden. I think Clemson can keep it close. Now, are they going to win the game? I would take BYU personally. I think BYU's a better team, but I do think Clemson is not a team that's going to be afraid of the moment because of what Brad Brownell has built.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Illinois at Ohio State. Obviously, that is a Big Ten game on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, the big takeaways Tuesday. Wednesday, Charleston at USF is, a good mid-major game. Mr. Dean being out for the season for Charleston definitely loses some luster.
Yes.
New Mexico at VCU is a really fun one.
Yep.
Liberty at NC State is another potential fun one. Shout out to Will Wade for even being willing to schedule that game.
Yeah, NC State's going to have to figure some things out defensively. They've really struggled. They played UNC Asheville this past weekend. Asheville was in that game probably longer than most people thought. And Liberty's a good team. Now, Liberty, I don't think has gotten off the start they wanted to. I think you would agree. I mean, you covered the CUSA for the magazine. I think we all thought Liberty was going to run away with this league, and it's not a runaway right now. I mean, New Mexico State has looked very good in that league, and Sam Houston has looked pretty solid as well. I mean,
Kennesaw.
Kennesaw. I mean, there's been some good competition in that league. I think that league has looked a little bit deeper than I think some of us thought for Liberty.
And then Wisconsin at Nebraska obviously is a Wednesday Big Ten game. Thursday, we have Iowa at Iowa State. Again, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's St. Joe's, obviously a Philly school that I cover at Syracuse. That's pretty much it on Thursday. And then Friday, we have Texas at UConn. That's really the only, game of note on Friday.
Right.
UConn has a tough week, obviously, playing Florida and Texas, obviously. Saturday is flooded, though, with great games. I'm not going to go through every one, obviously, but Arkansas at Texas Tech. Texas Tech, now that Arkansas got that win over Louisville, Texas Tech desperately needs to win that game over Arkansas.
Yeah, I mean, Texas Tech, they definitely need – if that game is a neutral site or is that game in Lubbock?
I think it's in Lubbock.
Okay, well, regardless, I think Texas Tech, has an opportunity to really boost the Big 12 there again. Arkansas had lost to Duke and Michigan State. They did beat Louisville, which was huge. I mean, that was a huge win for Arkansas. So Arkansas is definitely going to have a lot of confidence coming in. I think both teams are going to be very confident coming in.
It's in Dallas.
Okay, so basically Texas Tech is going to be a home team. Yeah, I think I would take Texas Tech in that game. I love Christian Anderson. He's played so well. I know you were high on him to start the year. John Calipari obviously will have his team ready. The two guards he has, Calipari, Malik and oh my God, I can't think of the kid's name, but the two guards that he has that are electric. They're just Acuff. There you go. Yeah, Acuff and Malik, they're really good. And I think the question I have is just Texas Tech on the defensive end. If they can hold Arkansas from getting in the lane, I think Texas Tech is going to win that game. So I'll take the Red Raiders there.
Marquette at Purdue. I think we're both obviously going to take Purdue. Oklahoma State at Oklahoma is a fun one.
I like the Pokes.
Yeah,
I do. Oklahoma State's look good.
Yeah,
they've looked very good. Steve Lutz has done a really nice job putting together a team there. Oklahoma's been too inconsistent for me again under Porter Moser. They lost to Gonzaga earlier in the year. They were never really in the game. They just got blown out by Arizona State in kind of a concerning result. I just don't know. I mean, sure, they'll probably bounce back and play better, but Oklahoma State is no slouch. And I think that's a team that's going to be around the bubble again come Selection Sunday. Listen, to start the year, I think I preseason picked Oklahoma State, I think, 9th in the league. I didn't have them in the tournament. They look like a tournament team right now. I mean, they really do. And I've been very impressed with what Steve Lutz has built there so far. So I'll take Oklahoma State.
What about, Providence at Butler? Both those teams we need that for the Big East, obviously.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Cincinnati at Georgia. Cincinnati desperately needs that.
Another one that's really, yeah. I like Georgia though.
I like
Georgia's look
Georgia
good.
too.
They've
What about?
looked good, and yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna go into the next game to finish your thought.
No, I was just gonna say Georgia's looked really good, and I think better than a lot of us anticipated because I think a lot of us thought they were going to be like 14th in the SEC, but now they look like a top half of the league team.
Yeah, I think I had them in our preseason prediction 14th, I think. So
Yeah, I had them.
Kansas State at Creighton, both those teams desperately need that win if they want to get inch closer to the bubble.
Yeah, no, they're in pretty similar spots. I mean, I think Creighton needs it more, to be honest. But they both definitely need it. There's no question.
Pitt at Villanova. We're going to see what this Villanova team's made of this week. Obviously playing at Ann Arbor versus Michigan and then playing a home game against Pitt. Pitt just lost to Hofstra today. I don't think they're anything great. They're not. But yeah.
No, I mean, listen, I spoke to Jeff Capel in the summer, and he was going in. He was like, I don't know what I have. And then they lose to Sean Jackson to the heart ailment. So that was a big blow for them. And, listen, you lose Jalen Lowe and you replace him with DeMarco Minor. It's a downgrade. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And Pitt looks like a bottom 3 ACC team this year with Georgia Tech and Boston College. They just don't look competitive. And, it's disappointing because Pitt is, when we were growing up, Pitt was a big deal in the Big East.
Yeah.
With Jamie Dixon. But now it's a struggle with Jeff Capel. It just had, unfortunately. And they lost to Hofstra. They lost to Quinnipiac last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. They've had their struggles, and I am very concerned with Pitt. It's been a major disappointment. But I think my guess would be Villanova doesn't win in Ann Arbor, but they blow out Pitt and they bounce back game. Would be my prediction.
What about Kansas and NC State?
NC State needs it. I'll tell you that.
Yep.
I don't think Kansas is in pretty good shape.
Especially with Peterson back now, which is worth noting.
Yeah. And I think Kansas is in good shape. I don't think, losing at NC State, I don't think would be a horrible loss for them. But I'm going to take Kansas. I just like the way they're playing. I think it really benefited them playing without Peterson. NC State defensively just isn't good. And NC State doesn't have size. Who's guarding Bidunga?
Yeah.
You're going to put Ben Allen Lubin on him?
They don't have anyone else.
Ben Allen Lubin's giving up 3 inches right there. I mean, I'm going to take Kansas. I have been surprised at how good Kansas has been so far.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take the Jayhawks. And NC State, I think a lot of us thought Will Wade was going to figure it out. I think it's going to take a little bit more time than we thought.
Then we have Arizona State, who's actually been pretty good. They came in second place in Maui, and then they beat Oklahoma yesterday. They're playing at Santa Clara, who so far looks like they're going to be a bubble team as a potential third team in the WCC.
Yeah, Santa Clara got they got blown out by New Mexico yesterday.
Yeah.
That's going to be a good game because I think Santa Clara is going to be really pissed off at the way they played at the Pit. I know the Pit historically is a very tough arena to play in. But that I don't know if that loss is going to look very good.
Yeah.
Santa Clara, I think, desperately needs this game because, so just so you all know, I was on the spaces with T3 Bracketology and 801 Bracketology. They're two very well-known guys. And I actually asked them about Santa Clara. And we talked about this and we said, look, Santa Clara is probably going to have to win a lot of their non-con. And they're going to have to, their only losses in conference are going to have to be to Gonzaga and St. Mary's. And you're probably going to have to beat them at least once or twice to have a shot.
Yeah.
Because the committee's not going to respect mid-major teams. They just don't. I mean, historically, they haven't done it. So I think Santa Clara needs this game. Arizona State's going to have opportunities in the Big 12. They've done very well. I think we'd all agree that has been one of the more surprising teams so far this year has been Bobby Hurley's group. But I will take Santa Clara in a bounce back spot here. I'm going to ride with the mid-major team. I'm not confident in it, but I'll take Santa Clara.
Then we have Indiana at Kentucky. We already alluded to how badly Kentucky needs one of those wins this week. Michigan and Maryland is a Big Ten game. Ohio State at West Virginia. San Fran and St. Louis is a super fun mid-major game. If the A-10 wants a shot at getting multiple bids, St. Louis is going to have to win that game.
Yeah, and San Francisco just beat Mississippi State today, which
Yes.
is a really nice win for them. They've gotten off to a bit of a slow start. They really needed that. Um, I think St. Louis, they're really good. They blew out Central Michigan by like 40 today or yesterday.
Yeah.
So their net rankings about to skyrocket like 25 spots. But I like St. Louis. I do. They were my pick to win the A10 to start the year. Avila is awesome. I think Josh Schertz is in line to get a Power Five job here, in the next cycle. Um, you know, and I'm going to take them. I think the Stanford game was unfortunate. The result, Stanford missing that free throw and then hitting the three in the corner. Um, I like the Billikens. I think they're playing well. San Francisco, they needed that win, but I don't know that San Francisco is going to really be in the mix for a spot this year, unfortunately, for Chris Carlson, who I know is a friend of the Center Hub. But I will take St. Louis.
Then we already alluded a little bit to it, Arizona and Alabama. That's basically a de facto home game for Alabama.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a tough one.
yeah.
That's
Alabama,
a,
for what it's worth, we said like the tiers of the top 9 in terms of ranking for my top 75 teams. Those are clear top 9. Alabama might be ranked number 10 for me this week.
yeah, and I'm not going to argue with this.
Yeah.
I mean, they've looked great. I mean, I saw them against St. John's. They were incredible. They're fast. Question for me, again, with Alabama is their size. Like, they just don't have a lot of it. Noah Williamson from Bucknell has not looked the part. I think Bol Bowen's been awesome. The Florida State transfers look really good, but he's not a center.
Yeah.
Um, Arizona's tough. I mean, Koa Pete, Jaden Bradley. Like, I'm excited to watch Jaden Bradley against Aiden Holloway. That should be a really good matchup. If Holloway plays, which I'm assuming he will, because I know he missed a game or two, but I'm expecting that to be a great game. Obviously, it will be a pro Alabama crowd, um, but I think it will be an awesome atmosphere, an awesome game. I like the Tide. I think Alabama, they beat St. John's. They beat, I think, no, they lost to Purdue. Um, they don't like neither one of these teams really need this one. Like, it's not like both of them are going to be in. They're both going to be resume. They're going to be top 4 seed protected. So like, it's not like this loss is like detrimental for either one of them. But I'll take the home team. I'll go with Alabama.
What about UCLA and Gonzaga? That's in Seattle, so again, basically a de facto home game for Gonzaga.
Yeah, UCLA is starting to play a little better. They won at Washington. I know Washington, is a little shaky. I know they just beat USC, but Donovan Dent's starting to find himself a little bit now.
Yeah.
We know that Bilodeau was hurt. I think he missed the Cal game. Um, and I think that Cal game was a bit of a wake up call for UCLA.
Yeah.
I know Cal has looked better, but you still lost to Cal at the end of the day, and that's not exactly welcoming to UCLA. So I will. I'm going to take Gonzaga though. They've looked great. Much better than I thought. I'll be first to admit it. Gonzaga is really good.
Yeah.
Really good. I mean, Graham Ike is awesome. Um, I had some concerns coming into the year with Gonzaga defensively and their guard play, but man, they've answered all my questions. They look great. I would be hard pressed not to take them, especially with the game being in Seattle and the crowd being pro Gonzaga. So I'll take the Zags.
Otherwise, Sunday, there's a couple mid-major games like St. Mary's at Boise, North Texas, South Alabama, Troy, UAB. Like, that's pretty much it. So, like, the action this week is clearly on Saturday. So, with no college football on, make sure, everyone should be tuning in to a great day of college basketball on Saturday.
Yeah, the schedule is great. I know this time of year it tends to be pretty dead. Obviously football kind of takes the reins with the CFP and everything, and
Yeah.
um, you know, so. But yeah, no, listen, some teams, these are important games. They've got to find a way to build resumes. NC State, like you mentioned, they have a big one against Kansas. They got to figure that out. Um, there's some big ones there for some of these teams who have got to figure it out. I mean, I was doing a bracketology this morning. I'm trying to release a bracket sometime this week or next, but um, I would say the top 6 seed lines look pretty solid right now, in terms of like who's legitimate. And then I would say there's a pretty significant drop off. I would say 7 through the bubble is pretty mediocre right now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's bad. They're just teams trying to still figure it out, you know. But I think the top, 25-ish teams are pretty solid, and I'm pretty comfortable at those teams getting in right now.
Both Indiana and Kentucky desperately need those wins against each other. Let me see. I know Indiana went 0-2 this week, didn't they? They lost at Minnesota and lost to Louisville.
Yeah, the Minnesota loss is killer. I mean, you just can't do that. You can't, look, I know it's the first road game, conference play. It can be a little tricky, but you can't lose to Minnesota. You just can't do that. No disrespect to Nico Bedved, but you can't lose to Minnesota. That's going to be an ugly loss on the resume come Selection Sunday. That Kentucky game is going to mean a lot. I mean, that's a big one for both of them, and it'll be fun to watch Charles Barkley and Dick Vitale on the call, so that'll be exciting for everybody. But it's a big one. Kentucky desperately needs wins, and Indiana as well. But I think Kentucky needs it more, if you want my, just based on what I've seen, obviously. But my concerns with Kentucky are they don't really have a point guard. Otega always effort hasn't been there 100%. He's their leading scorer, but there were plays where he just didn't try. It's just not good. And I think Mark Pope is searching, and I think they're crazy for wanting him out. That's a little extreme. But yeah, it's concerning. Lexington is a concerning place right now.
Okay. I think that pretty much covers everything. I know this is a little shorter of an episode, but given, how much transpired in Feast Week a couple weeks ago, again, this week was a little slower, and next week, other than Saturday, is very slow.
Yeah, I would say this, though. I just want to give credit to the Mountain West today.
Okay.
They did some good things. UNLV got a win over Stanford today.
Mm-hmm.
Boise beat Butler yesterday. The Mountain West is starting to maybe show its teeth a little, but not going to sit here and say the Mountain West is going to be a 3 or 4 bid league. But the Mountain West picked up some good wins here last couple of days, which I think is going to really help them down the road if they want to get more than 2 bids outside of San Diego State and Utah State, who was blown out by South Florida. So they've got to figure some things out. But yeah, no, the Mountain West, I just want to give them credit. I know we've been shitting on them for a while, but I gotta give them some love. They got some good results the last couple of days that were absolutely necessary.
Okay. This pretty much concludes, I think, everything. Be on the lookout for a couple articles we have lined up this week. Tomorrow we have an article on Vanderbilt written by Sheed and ATL, one of our beloved contributors. You could check that out at the centerhub.substack.com. Then you'll see Andrew's and my weekly piece coming out Tuesday on, basically last week in college basketball, previewing last week in college basketball. And Wednesday, obviously, is my weekly top 75 article piece. So be on the lookout for all that. Otherwise, you can follow me on Twitter at @the_NBA goal. You could follow us, the Center Hub, on all of our socials at the Center Hub _BB. We did do a recap, on the Big 5 Classic. That's on our Center Hub YouTube channel. Check that out. You can follow Andrew at Andrew S Hoops 2. Otherwise, myself, Andrew, all of our contributors at the Center Hub. We will talk to you guys soon. Thanks for listening.